Hey everybody, prophetic. Have you heard that? Well, we're going to talk about it today, but we're going to talk about how to pray that way. So stay tuned. Hey everybody, hey. Hi. Aren't you excited about today? Well, we're going to be talking about how to pray with the prophets, how to pray with the word prophetically, because I'm telling you, that is what God is doing today. This is amazing. And I think about all the decades we spent praying. Good night, man. I tell you, I've been praying since I've been about 3 years old. That was a long time, y'all. And but these last years, it's been awesome learning how to pray. The last couple of decades, learning how to pray prophetically, because it's amazing how when you learn how to pray the written word, and then you learn how to pray what the prophets are prophesying, and then you start seeing things begin to happen, and you start decreeing. And then all of a sudden you hear on the news, or somebody calls you, or they say, like, did you hear so-and-so said such and such? And then it really becomes wonderful, because you just like, okay, I want to go pray some more. Come on, let's get together. And my team and I, we've laughed about it all these years. We thought, why would people want to go do other stuff when they could pray? It's so much fun to pray. It really is fun to pray. Now, sometimes the intercession is really hard. And that's difficult, but God always ends up the intercession, and so sweet. It's so wonderful. And it kind of reminds me of having a baby. When I had my 2 kids, it was like, I was big glad when this is over. But the minute they put those babies in my arms, I was like, it's worth every minute, and I forgot all about it. And so that's what intercession is like. And so sometimes it's a little bit hard when you're getting through it, but God is doing such an amazing work today, and you're a big, huge part of it. And so my thing is, I'm trying to get people activated in real praying prophetically, so you can start seeing and knowing. And people ask me, when did you start seeing and knowing? I guess when I was a little girl. I just remember I just knew stuff. I just knew things. But I didn't know what I knew, because back in those days, I wasn't allowed to go to church. My folks weren't saved at that time, and so they didn't want to do the church thing. But it was amazing, because I could still see and I could still understand, but I didn't understand the scriptures, and I didn't have a group of Christians around me. So I've always been able to see, and so you want to yield to the sensitivity of the Holy Spirit, and you learn to yield to Him like how you are. God won't have you yield to Him like I am, the way that I am. And I'll just tell you, probably most of y'all figured out how I am. But when I get around God and things starts happening, I get just really excited. Because when He took me to heaven in 1971, I was just, I was jumping up and down. I was screaming and hollering in heaven. You would think you would be very composed, right? But I was composed at the beginning, but then when I got really filled with the Holy Spirit and all of His love, and I was so happy. Well, I'm just kind of like that. So when God does something wonderful, I just got ecstatic. Isn't it awesome that God is doing this? Isn't it awesome He's saying this? But you might be a very quiet person and just kind of, say, yeah, that was really wonderful. And it's okay. You can be just like you are. God works with each of us individually. I think that is so wonderful. He doesn't try to be one size fits all. So what we're going to talk about is how to pray prophetically. How does God reveal things to you? And I learned this from Kenneth Hagin Sr., and we learned that from Kenneth and Gloria Copeland. They had a meeting with him and with Kenneth Hagin, and they were telling us about it, and they said, we just learned to go with patterns. And I studied Kenneth Hagin Sr. for years and years, and he just taught, how does God deal with you? He deals with you in patterns. So what kind of pattern does He deal with you? How you are? Now, He might want you to change in some areas. He wanted me to change in some areas, and I'm still changing every single day. But how does He work with you? And what I mean is, like, for instance, if my whole life is going to change like forever, like the rest of my life, and God is doing something really amazing, it's going to be supernatural. I mean, it's just going to be supernatural. It's not going to be normal life every single day. But if it's just going to be regular life and I'm going to be doing whatever it is I do every single day, then it'll just be regular life. But if there's going to be a major life-changing event, it will be supernatural. By that, I mean, I might end up in heaven. Jesus might be standing at the foot of the bed. Angels might show up or something or I could be taken in a vision somewhere. And so that changes, but that might not be how he does you. How does he change you in two areas? Like something life-changing. Life-changing could be like getting married. Life-changing could be maybe deciding to go get a college degree. That'd be a big change. Maybe, I don't know, starting a business or something. That could be major. Life-changing things are like major, big, great, big things that happen in our life. What's the pattern? How does he deal with you in those things? Is it just, well, you just think you're supposed to do this and you just kind of go do it? Or do you have visions? Do you have dreams? Does somebody come up and give you a prophetic word, or do you get 3 or 4 prophetic words and then you go like, oh, okay, like this is God talking to me? Or is it just you're just reading the Bible and you just think, well, I think this is what I need to do, and you just go do it? You think right now, how does that happen? Now, I'm talking about life-changing. So then, like regular day life, like you have to go to the grocery store and get a loaf of bread. You just got to go cook supper and stuff like that. Just regular life every single day. How does he speak to you? You know, like, when, for instance, you go to the grocery store and you're in the grocery store. Do you just look around and see things and think, okay, I can see God in that, I can see God. And God begins to talk to you like that in just like regular everyday life. So write that down. Are you thinking right now? Think about that. Just like, yeah, I would love to hear from you. How does God do those two areas? Life-changing and then just regular everyday life. So as you get that down, you get that pattern down, as you do that, then you're going to be able to understand, okay, then he's going to show me prophetic praying the same way. He'll show me prophetic praying for the nation to be able to change the nation. He's going to show me those type of things in such a way that it's going to alter everything in my life. And so when that begins to happen, you go, oh, okay, that's a clue. For instance, in praying, in prophetic praying, and I'll talk about myself again. In prophetic praying, I pray with a group. I have a group that I prayed with. In fact, I've had a prayer group since 1971. That's when Kenneth Hagin Sr. came into my life, and I learned how to have a prayer group. But when I pray with a prayer group, every single person has a part. And as they have a part, I can see and I know things. And so we start like working a puzzle. And so as I'm praying with this group, then it becomes whole. Things begin to happen and we can see the whole. This happened a few months ago. One of our prayer people who they'd hardly say anything when we're praying. They just sit there quietly. They hardly pray. You can't even hear them praying. They just pray under their breath. They're reading their Bible. And so when we get through praying, after maybe 2 hours we get through praying, I look at this person and I'll say, did you get anything? And they said, well, I saw the strangest thing. And well, what did you see? Well, all I know is connect the dots. And I knew it was God, but how are you going to find connect the dots in the Bible? But I knew we would start hearing, and sure enough, it was 2 or 3 weeks later, then we heard different prayer groups talking about, and prophets talking about, well, connect the dots. And I was like, wow, okay, we got it. And so God has everybody that has a part, and their part helps you to understand the whole. That's how it is with me and my prayer group. And so when I'm praying by myself, though, it's different. I'm by myself, I'm alone, I'm in my prayer closet, I have my Bible, I'm praying in the prayer language of the Holy Spirit, I'm praying, I have my eyes closed, I'm concentrating on the Lord, I have a pen, pencil, have paper, because I'm paying attention to what God is saying, what he's showing me. And so I start writing down notes, I start taking notes, I start writing down notes. And many times, I tell you, I have visions, many times I can see things, and then I just hold them. I just wait. I just wait till I start getting confirmation. So how do you pray when you're by yourself? How do you pray with your husband or your wife, your kids, your family? How do you pray when you're in a group, maybe at your church? How does he work with you personally? And so mark that down as a pattern. Then you'll begin to be sensitive. See what happens with patterns that helps you to be sensitive to the Holy Spirit teaching you. You begin to understand, oh, okay, well, that's the normal way that he talks to me. And it'll help you not to miss God a lot of times. Now, I've missed God even in the pattern thing, but most of the time, it's as long as it does a pattern, then I've got it, And as long as we keep this pattern going, it's going to be easier for you to see and to hear and to know. And so that's what you want. How does God speak to you in those two areas? So the next thing is I'm telling you need to be with a good prayer team. You need to be, if you don't know how to pray prophetically, then hook up with a good prayer team and you just sit there. You don't have to offer anything. You just be quiet. You just sit there and listen. And as you sit there, you're learning, making notes, learning and making notes. So as we started into this brand new thing we've been doing, since 2019, everything has changed. All life has changed, I think, for everybody in the United States, and even in parts of the world, everything has changed. So how do you deal with that change? When you see something brand new, how do you deal with it emotionally? How do you deal with it spiritually? How do you deal with it on a personal level? Because I'm talking to you on a personal level today. So when something brand new, do you freak out when the tire goes flat? Do you have a fit when, I'm sorry, but that's true. People do that. When you find out that your bank account is overdrawn because you haven't been paying attention? What do you do? When something new pops up in your life and all of a sudden, maybe a doctor gives you a bad report, how do you respond? What you want to do is look at those areas of your life, see how you responded. If you responded negatively, then you want to say, Father, teach me how to see these things in faith so that I have peace, so that I can make a good ordained decision. If you freak out, you drive your wife, your husband, your kids nuts, then I'm telling you, you're not going to go anywhere, because that kind of chaos is only going to cause more chaos, because God is trying to tell you important things right now, because we are in a very serious place in our nation. We're in a very serious place in the world. I don't know if you've heard any of this talk about AI and some of these other crazy things that's going on. We're in a really serious place. They're talking about putting chips here and there and the other place. So you need to how are you going to respond to that? How are you going to prepare for that emotionally? How do you prepare for that spiritually? I heard Rick Renner was talking about going through a hard time. And he said he just took himself aside and he started, and this is amazing. He said he started just reading the Bible and just reading and reading and reading. And he let the Bible start rearranging his brain so his brain could start thinking right, because he was trying to find out this and he was trying to find out if God wanted him to do that and this and that and the other. And he said everything was blah, 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 blah. And he said he just started reading. And I've shared with people so many times, if you can't find an answer, just read anywhere. It doesn't matter where you read, Old Testament, New Testament. You don't even have to understand what you're reading. Every word you read out of this Bible goes life, 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 light, light, dispels darkness. And pretty soon you just I know what to do. I know how I need to do that. I know how to need to take care of that. I've got a question before the Lord right now that I'm really sincerely seeking Him about, and I don't have the answer yet. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just reading. I started reading Ephesians. I think it was Sunday. Well, I've been reading Ephesians, but Sunday I sat down for about 2 or 3 hours, and just in the Passion Translation, I read every single word and prayed out every word that was in Ephesians, chapter after chapter. And the next thing you know, I was just seeing as clear as day. And all I was doing was reading. I was just reading, and it was just coming clear. And I was like, wow, oh, wow, cool, oh, wow, oh. I mean, there was fireworks going off on the inside of me. So when you have situations that are just popping up in your life and you're not handling them properly emotionally, I'm telling you, emotions are huge right now. What we're about to go through these next few months, maybe next 2 or 3 years, we don't know for sure how long this is going to be. But what we're about to go through, you're going to have your emotions steady as she goes. Those emotions got to be like, and some people don't react outwardly, but they react inwardly. If you react inwardly, then that's how sometimes you get sick, because your body is at such a torn up place on the inside. Sometimes that's how you get mad and you start saying stupid stuff you shouldn't be saying in your soul, because your soul is torn up. How are we going to handle what's about to happen? Are we going to win? Absolutely, we're going to win. Yes, we are. We're going to win, but we need you steady, and we need me steady. I'm working on me. I'm not pointing those fingers that way. They're doing this. And so emotionally and spiritually, prepare your family. Get your family together where you can, if you're a single mom, a single dad, or if y'all have 12 kids, it doesn't matter. Get your family where you're together, saying the same thing, believing the same thing, going in the same direction. And I know that might be a little bit harder when you have teenage kids, because they kind of want to do their own thing, but you can love them into sitting down for a few minutes and taking communion with you so that you guys stay in one accord. And because Satan is scattering people right now, we know God is gathering people. It's imperative that we stay together in unity. It's imperative your family stays together, and families stay together. Groups of families stand together so that we can what? Be watching for the enemy, be watching for the move of God, so that we can just be able to activate it just exactly. The next thing you need to decide is, you got to be ready for this. You got to decide when you're praying prophetically, God shows you something. Can I change that? How much of that can I change? Oh my God, God showed me this, God showed me that. And a lot of times it's good things that the Lord shows us, but the Lord also, like I've been teaching y'all about a watchman, you're up there and you see the coming of the Lord, but you also see the activity of the enemy, because you need to know how to cut them off at the pass. Hezekiah found out that they were all coming after him, and they were outnumbered. It said it was like the grains of sand. There were so many coming after him. There was no way. He was totally outnumbered. What was he going to do? The first thing he did was he went in and he said, Lord, here's the situation. What do you want me to do about it? Well, you would think that Hezekiah would get up and get his commander-in-chief, here we are, and we're going to go out there, and we're going to get all of our horses and our swords and everybody. And the Lord said, well, just send the guys out there that know how to sing. Hello. How are you going to handle that? Like, oh, really? Okay, we're going to send the choir out to handle this, like all this stuff that's going on. You got to be willing to get what? Here's the situation that you showed me, Father. Now, how do I handle it? And he might say, go on a fast. He might say, because a lot of people are fasting right now. There's a huge move in the body of Christ where people are fasting. And you know why you fast? Is so you can stop thinking about food for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 30 minutes, and you're able to get your head in the Word, get your body under control and get it over here. And like, come on, body, you're not going to sleep and you're not going to eat. You're going to get in here and you're going to find out what God is saying, because this is a serious day we're in. God is telling us we're going to win, but how are we going to win? He told Hezekiah, how you're going to win is you got to have a bunch of singers. Well, he told David one time when he was fighting the Philistines, he said, just get over there behind that mulberry tree and just hang out there and I'll tell you what to do next. That's crazy. We're fighting these enemies. Hezekiah is supposed to send singers. David's supposed to go over there and hide. Hello. I mean, like, God has specific instructions for you, prophetic praying. Learning how to see what God is saying, to see what God is saying, to see what He's saying, and then learning how to pray out those words and learning how to make decrees so that you're praying them out on a legal level. Because God is teaching us, we start praying His words out. And I'm not talking about shouting and stomping your feet and ways, shaking your hand and carrying on like that. I'm talking about real authority. Real authority was when the guy that had the soldier, he said, you just say the word Jesus and it'll all happen. He said, I understand authority. I understand. He didn't say I had to yell and scream and, raise my gun, shoot everybody in town. He just said, I understand authority. I just tell this guy to go and this guy to come and they're just going to obey me. I got it. I understand authority. Speak. No emotion. I'm the one in authority. You guys have to do what I say. Isn't that amazing? And that's how healing came, because he understood authority. So I'm telling you, understand how you operate. Sometimes we do get loud. I'm not saying we don't get loud, but I'm saying getting loud is not necessarily operating in authority. You know when you're in authority. When you start making these decrees, you know when God has put His word in your mouth, Isaiah 51, when He's put His word in your mouth and you're saying, this is how it is going to be. This is what God is going to do next. This is how we're going to make this happen. And then there are times that God will tell you, just like Jesus, he just had to be quiet. He said if He would open His mouth, He could have called 10,000 leagues of angels. Can you imagine? Jesus makes it all the way to the cross, and then He says, I changed my mind. I don't want to do this. It'd been just like that, but you and me wouldn't have had salvation either. So sometimes we just have to keep our mouth shut and say, well, I'll deal with that later. I'll talk about that later. Especially if people start trying to push you into a conversation you're not ready to have. It's best just to use wisdom and say, this is not the time to talk about that, because you don't have all the information right. So you just learn how to be quiet, get back over there and just sit still. You absolutely have got to learn how to navigate through this. And my best advice to anybody, I tell everybody this all the time, and I do this myself, and you've heard me say it before. Get the Passion Translation. Get Isaiah 11 and start reading it. And read all the footnotes. Pray the footnotes. And don't just read it out loud and pray it out loud, so that you can begin to gain wisdom, so that you know how to deal in it. It just lists all these different circumstances that we go through in life. The next thing you could do is get the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus told us how to deal with bad situations. I'm telling you, you're going to have to learn how to navigate. How are you going to get your finances? Have you been obedient to the Lord to get your finances under control? Or are your finances controlling you? Who's controlling who? Same thing with your health. Has God been telling you, don't do this, you need to do this? Who's in control? Are you in control, or are you listening to God? You understand what I'm saying? Same thing with your kids. How are you helping them to navigate? What are you teaching them? What are you showing them? How are they getting through school? Oh my God, the mess that's going on in schools, the stuff in the public schools is unreal. How are you teaching your kids how to navigate through that? I mean, all this, what they call peer pressure and all that stuff. You need wisdom. And you can't just go on Sunday morning and listen to some sermonette and come back and say, well, I know how to do it this week. It's you and the Lord, prophetic praying, getting to where you can see. And when you see, then you have to understand, what am I seeing? What is this I'm seeing? If you see an object or you see a thing, dreams, visions, and real visions, mental images, there's real visions, there's mental images. You just see things in your mind, you just know something. But then there are real visions where you're actually taken in trances, or you're taken places physically, you're taken places spiritually. How do you interpret those? How do you handle those? That's what God is pouring out now. Acts 2, that's what he's pouring out. He's pouring out prophecies. And hey, listen, do me a favor. Don't run from meeting to meeting hoping you're going to get a word. God give you a word every single day. Every morning when you get up, if you open the Bible, he'll give you a word. He'll talk to you. He'll show you through that day. So how trained are you when you have a vision? How do you know what to do with a vision? How do you know how to handle a vision? How do you know when to talk about a vision? I've been talking about the enclave vision that I had back in 2020. I had to hold it from 2020 to now. I just started talking about it just a couple of weeks ago publicly. I held it all that time because I knew what to do with it. I knew what the vision was about. I understood it, but I had to wait for the certain time. And do you know how to do that? Can you grow in that? You need to write things down. You're going to have to write them down because you're going to have to map your way out of this situation. From now to the end of the year, or even before the end of the year, you need to map your way. This is what we need to do when this happens. This is what we need to do when that happens. This is where we need to be. This is who we need to be hooked up with. I tell my prayer group all the time. I got some of them in here right now from my prayer group. I said, we got to stay together. We have to stay together, and we have to keep helping each other, because every one of us is just seeing a part or partial, but together we can see accurately. So start mapping it out. I've been talking to people. Somebody said, well, what do I need to do about this? They were asking me about the finances, and I said, for good night, get a budget. I mean, that's not hard to figure out. Get a budget. Figure out how to get your house paid off. Figure out how to get your car paid off. Come on, let's get with this so that God, when he makes his transfer of wealth, you're in a position to do something. Learn to use what you got. That's what the widow lady said to the prophet. She said, well, I got this little bit of oil, and that's all. It's in a vessel. And he said, well, go out and borrow some empty vessels, and I'll show you what to do next. And so she began to follow that map. See, God's given us a map. He's given you an individual map. He's given me a map. He's given our nation a map of how to get out of this mess that we allowed ourselves to get into. What is your map? Write your vision down. Map your way out of this mess. If you don't, you're going to end up in a bigger mess than you are right now. I know you're encouraged. So like, subscribe, and be a part of what we're doing. And I do want to tell you, thank you so much for helping us financially. And most of all, thank you for praying for me. I get your notes, and I appreciate that. God bless.